what I now need done. And let me do this. Auto width on. Set AB, heading, set A, and 90. Yes, 90. So the corollary to that is, rather than, oh, I'm getting rid of a Deutz, I have to replace it with a Deutz, is I'm probably more inclined to choose a vehicle I have never used before, if at all possible. So I'm kind of biasing against obviously using a Valtra N, because I've used that in so many of my series. I'm also inclined against an Axion 900, because our last two Saturday series have included an Axion 900. And I don't really see the point of representing that vehicle again. Now, that said, if a Xerion came up, that could be considered. If an Axion 800 came up, I could consider that. Or even the 900 TerraTrack, I could consider that. But it's sort of avoiding vehicles I've made too much, or I featured too much. So yeah, when it comes to a Valtra, I would probably do a Valtra Q ahead of any of the older other Valtras, because we've featured a lot of the other Valtras. I can't remember. I think I streamed the Field Mountain Farm. I can't remember. That was a co-op with Mrs. Osa. And we played a couple of Valtra A's, and so it's sort of, I like the Valtra A, but it doesn't have quite the utility of something with sort of 130, 140 horsepower, which is what the Massey 5S is. If I hadn't had a Massey 5S in the sale, the tractor I would use in that classification of tractor, I would have liked to use a Fendt 300, because I don't think I've ever featured a Fendt 300 on any of the series. So from that sort of variety standpoint, the Fendt 300 would probably have been the vehicle I bought if I was buying new. As it was, the 5S was a sale tractor, so we got the 5S, and that is what it is. I'm trying to think, other tractors we've had. The Fendt Favorite 150 I'm tending to avoid, again, because it's the really cheap startup tractor in Farm Sim 19 and Farm Sim 22, so it does get over-featured, in my opinion. Harvesters, we're kind of getting to a sort of a classic, this is the one we feature. We once again have a mid-sized Fendt harvester, but it was on sale. So I'm not saying I didn't have a choice, but it was the cheapest thing around, and so it happened to be the one we bought. In the previous series, Lawfolds and Oakfield Farm, again, our first harvester was a mid-sized Fendt, and they just happened to be the harvesters we ended up picking at the mid-size sort of build point. Should I have got something different? Possibly. Maybe I should have gone with the Massey Ferguson version of that, but when I look at the equipment I have on my farm at the moment, I don't have a Fendt, I have a Massey Ferguson, so that coloured that choice. But it's kind of, it's kind of hit and miss what I pick at any given time. But I do try and mix it up a bit. One of the reasons for having the John Deere, I have never featured a John Deere on any of my playthroughs, primarily because John Deere wasn't a thing for so long. And I think for Farm Sim 19, so many people had to have a John Deere in their playthrough. I decided I'm going to be the person who doesn't have to feature a John Deere in the playthrough. So I never had I've never driven a John Deere in a playthrough that I've done. I might have done the 4040 by Black Sheep, but that was small farm with cheap equipment, and so there was a specific reason for using that, and that wasn't a featured series, that was a private playthrough. Are you going to make that turn? Oh, yes indeed. Okay, good. But big harvesters, I think, Lawfolds we featured as Alexian. I honestly cannot remember what we had for Oakfield. I think we did upgrade the Fent to something bigger, and I'm kind of thinking this series I would like to do one of the Black Atcos, just because I haven't done them before. But we have the opportunity to buy other than new equipment on Farm Sim 22. So a lot of the times my decisions are coloured by what happens to come up in the shop. And as we've demonstrated, all of our tractors, which are very expensive pieces of equipment when you think about it, are less than new. In some cases, significantly less than new. Well, even this one's 54 hours, give or take. It's not even mine. I approve whoever I'm doing this work for. I might turn this into an alternate row rather than consecutive rows. I mean, this is a big, it's a big tractor. It doesn't have a particularly good turn radius, but it does hold this. The pivot point is further back than is typical, so we can do adjacent rows. It's just that it's kind of on the limit. So we'll just take it easier doing the turns at the end of the field. I'm sure everything will be happier as we go. Of course, these contracts won't take us long. Now, part of my one day of contracts deal, it's not one type of contract. We're doing the 3 cultivating contracts just because, environmental score does not encourage cultivation. It would prefer that you didn't cultivate fields, so we're never going to have a cultivator, and it's very, very dusty. And so the opportunity to cultivate a field is limited to contracts. Harvesting, we're always going to have harvesting equipment going forward because we just bought one. We're always going to have grass equipment. We've always got fertilizer equipment. Spreading lime, I can't do that at the moment because I don't have a lime spreader. And I've leased a lime spreader a few times. Now, that can be considered a costly thing to do, but typically, you're liming once every third harvest. When you get, you lime this field, if it was ours, would be perfect lime, or perfect pH level. Then it goes to good for 2 harvests, and then it drops to something else. At that point, at that drop, I decide, I want to put more lime on the field to bring it back to perfect. You could bring it back to perfect every single harvest if you so desired, but it's not necessarily a requirement to do so, and it won't adversely impact your environmental score by not liming every harvest. And so, consequently, I don't need a lime spreader very frequently, and also I don't need it for very long when I do need it. So I'll lease it for a day, I'll lime the fields that need lime on, and then I send it back and I'm done with it. And this year, what was the field we did first? Field 50 was on its 3rd harvest. Field 49 we bought with bad pH levels, which is one of the reasons why the environmental score on that field is a little bit less than ideal at the moment. But we've rectified that by putting lime on that field, so that's all good and wonderful. The rest of our fields, I think 51 will probably need to be limed soon. 61 and 54 aren't going to need liming for 2 more years. We might need to lime 51 this year, I don't know. 52 needs lime every year, so there's one of the things I've figured on grass, you kind of need to do it every year. Or your environmental score gets quite badly impacted. And so, fertilizer you have to do all the time. And again, I'm just going to have a fertilizer on the roster all the time. But I only have a sprayer, I don't have a spreader. Now, when we get a spreader, probably make sure it's capable of doing both lime and fertilizer, although I'm less inclined to use it for fertilization than I am for just running out doing the lime when I need to. But if I had a lime spreader, I'd be able to do the lime spreading contracts. Although again, they use up so much lime, it's sort of, do I really want to do that? Now, doing lime spreading more frequently is not, it's going to cost you in diesel, it's going to cost you wear and tear on the spreader and the vehicle that's towing it. It's not going to impact you, I don't think, for the amount of lime you're using. Basically because the lime is metered, I can either spend, I need 3 times as much lime on the field. If I wait 3 harvests, I'm going to need 3 levels of lime. If I do 1 harvest and then lime, I'm going to do 1 level of lime. So over the course of 3 harvests, it doesn't matter if I lime every harvest or every 3 harvests, I'm going to use as much lime across the entire thing, or close to it. There are math discrepancies as when we do that, but generally you're going to use the same amount of lime every application. Do I want to lime every time? Well, if I've got the opportunity, maybe, but if I don't have the opportunity, why would I? I can either plant some stuff or I can put lime down, but I might, I'm going to be later on in the planting window, and I don't absolutely have to do it right now. Maybe I'll skip the liming that time. But like like the farm situation is now, we harvested 2 fields and we're pretty much done with all the field work. I had enough time, not just because they needed lime, but I had more than sufficient time to do it. I was actually considering holding off putting the slurry down until July 3, because now that I'm doing contracts on 2, the only thing I've got to do on 3 is deliver the perishables and skip to the next day. So, well, if I'd had the slurry available to do, I could have done the slurry. I could have skipped, we were what, 2-3 o'clock in the afternoon? No, earlier than that. I think we were just after midday, and then we did all the slurry and then we were done. But I could have skipped to 2, done the contract, skipped to 3, and do the perishable deliveries and slurry the fields. And then we're into August, and I think I've got 2 fields and are going to need to be harvested on that day. But the harvester is in the wrong yard. I thought the soybeans were going to need to be harvested first. Am I done? Yes, there we go. I am now done. Let's not worry about it. And I think, the thing is I don't need a cultivator. I don't use a cultivator on my fields most of the time. Now, if we start planting root crops or maize, then we're possibly going to need a cultivator to work the ground between harvests. So if we do need a cultivator, I will buy one. If we never need a cultivator, I might eventually buy one when we've got lots of money and lots of land, just so we can do cultivating contracts with our own equipment. I'm not adverse to buying equipment, but I tend to target stuff that comes up in store sales because it's shall we go that way? I don't know. Let's go that way. Yeah, it's sort of a case of I don't necessarily absolutely need the equipment. Okay. There's a dog here. Hope you don't get mad. Yeah, the equipment that I must have right this minute, because that's where I'm at. I have to buy new if it's not available on the sale. Equipment I'm gonna need, I know I'm going to need very, very soon will be where's he going? Oh, he's gonna go, I don't necessarily want you to go that way. Let's go that way. Pick the next line and go that way. So kind of like the tele trucks were. I didn't absolutely need them when I bought them, but I knew I was going to need them within a couple of months, and they were on the store sale. I'll buy those. But outside of that, even if it's on a store sale, I'm not going to buy it if I can't see a use for it. I kind of made a mistake with the tree planter, but there was always the option. We were definitely buying the tree area north of the field we harvested for wheat the other day. What I was still undecided about, whether I was going to replant it with trees or just plough it out and expand the field. I think it's 49. it ended up being I decided to expand the field. So I didn't need the tree planter, but the tree planter cost me about £4,000. So I'm not too upset about having it. It's just that it kind of broke my my general rules, I think. That said, if I decided to replant the trees, I'd probably have ended up leasing a tree harvester as opposed to buying one. So it's sort of, we've got one now, but it's going to be a while before I take up a huge huge logging area and just decimate 120 trees or whatever it works out at, and then need to replant them. I think I've learnt my lesson, you know, buying a plot of land that has no fields on it and expanding an existing plot of land and field into it is not the best of ideas, because there are, you know, elements of the game that don't really work well with that. Examples being paying a geologist to do your crop stuff, and even using Easy Developer Toolkit to do something in a field. The only part of the field I can affect is the part of the field that was in an area that was defined to have the field already, or an adjacent area which also already has a field. And just going round. Slip over to here. So this field is way off axis when it comes to GPS. What are we heading at? 133. Oh. I don't math. I can't math that, so I'm not going to worry. I noticed we were down £3,000, but that's not actually a problem, because that's milk tanker leasing cost and farm maintenance, general farm maintenance. 20% done. You can, with the contract mod that I'm using, it is possible to set up equipment lists. But you have to set up the data file with the type of equipment you want in the list. But it has been used by what's his name? Bear with me a second, and I'm just going to look it up. Where's the dude? Hopefully no sound. Nope, he's on pause. Disturb Simulations. That's the dude. He does do modified contract builds, and he will release the files of the builds that he does. So he's playing Maypole farm map in the early 90s. So he's using a lot of the sort of the older equipment. He's got a few mods loaded, but I think stuff like this as the big tractor, because it's an old tractor. You know, some of the older, the Rustle Mash, for example, then you get down to the mid-sized, and he's using 3670 and isn't there a John Deere, or is that in small tractors? Things like these, the 40 series. I think those are what's his face, Black Sheep's 40s. But he's just got a whole bunch of antique equipment set up for as contract lists. So when he does a contract, he's getting that older equipment. Although for the time frame he's playing his farm, it would be considered fairly modern equipment for the period. So it is, as I say, it's possible to, with the contract mod I'm using, and I can't remember what it's called, to actually have your own lists of equipment, and thus, when am I going to get that turned on? Really badly. Okay, this is what it is. And this is a horrible direction to be going in, so okay. Turn around and do it that way. So yeah, it's an option. Obviously, outside of that, you're really limited to buying the equipment that you're going to use. And I'm not averse to having older equipment. We've got that little, is it a JCB skid steer? Which, or it might be Massey Ferguson, actually. So we'll have to go there, go there. Massey Ferguson, this thing. That's old. It's kind of cool, like that. But, yeah. Anyway, what else shall we talk about? Oh, it's almost 12:30. Don't recall what time we started. Let's jump there, and we have been streaming for 3.5 hours. 3.5. That's about seven YouTube videos. Oh well. We're gonna pack out the YouTube videos this week. I think I have from last week. We are looking at one video left to drop tomorrow morning before YouTube people are all caught up to where we are before we started this stream. So they're still 30 minutes behind us here. And then of course we'll be creating 7 drops for potentially 8, depends how long we keep going here, but 7 to 8 video drops for this stream, and we'll be streaming again tomorrow, and we'll be streaming again on Monday. So I may have enough YouTube videos to push out till, I don't know, potentially through the weekend of the 7th. And with the stream on, is it the 7th? We'll probably push out to the weekend afterwards. So it's nice to have a lot of queued videos on YouTube. Not that I'm really fussed about releasing a YouTube video per day. I tend to drop 2 per day following a stream until we've used up the duration of the stream. But at times like this, we just blow through so many half-hour drops that there's no way I can get all of the videos out at 2 per day, half an hour before the next stream happens. Whee! So anyway, hi to the YouTube people. I don't say hi to them very often, but hey, hi YouTube people. I appreciate the views. Please like and subscribe and all of the things. I've actually had quite an increase in YouTube viewers. It's a little bit harder to tell who's watching. As far as I can tell, I've got 2 viewers, but in the chat I've got over a dozen. So who knows what the correct number is. I think YouTube's number of views is fairly accurate, so we'll go with that. I'm just driving around this field. Anyway, as I said, it's coming on 12:30 real time. Kind of like having that clock in the top right hand corner. I've had a lot of interesting times